Good morning, brothers and sisters at TEF. Pleasure to be with you this occasion and talk about human sexuality as a divine imprint. According to authors such as Harari, who wrote the bestsellers Sapiens and Homo Deus, we are quickly moving into the post-human age. By that I mean that whereas the definition used to be quite clear before, what it means to be human and is now up for discussion. Are we any different from any other animals? Should we live any differently or by natural instincts as they do? The neatly packed notion of human and AI, our genetic makeup, our biological destiny, what it means to be a man or a woman is being challenged by many in our culture, as well as those deeply engaged in the sciences. The tide of change is rising so fast that many are certain that we will be remaking ourselves significantly way before the end of this century, a kind of evolutionary process. Instead of a Darwinian process based on random mutations for fitness and survival, we are now moving to a stage of engineered mutation to cater to our whims of traits that we may find desirable. What we are today for many is simply a stage of what we are going to become. We are now changing the essence of who we are. Our genes, the blueprint of our lives can now be modified the way we can rewrite a paragraph in a piece of paper. And these changes will likely pass down to future generations, modifying our lineage forever. What is possible with gene editing, such as CRISPR technology, is still in its infancy, but forging ahead at almost lightning speed. All of nature is now accessible to mutation by us. And within this new universe of human engineering, human sexuality is arguably one area where technology has pushed the limits of malleability and the remaking of men and women. It is only one of many areas in which our destiny is now in collision course with our secular culture, but one that could potentially erase our most basic natural distinctions. In our age, given the scientific and cultural changes, the Bible's version of who we are seems rather archaic and narrow, even bigoted as thought so by the LGBTQ movement. The reading about creation seems more like a children's story rather than an account about the meaning of our lives and about who we are as men and women. In this area, there are many ways to sort out our identity. And I would like to take some time to reflect on them in the light of the biblical perspective. These, I think, are helpful in our conversation with our cultural moment. And I want to preface these reflections by saying that they should serve as an introduction to further dialogue. Human sexuality is much too complex to be fully addressed in 30 minutes over Zoom. The biblical passages I would like us to keep in focus as we meditate on the biblical alternative are found in Genesis and Psalms. I'm going to read these to you. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 through 28. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky, over the cattle and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother. This is chapter 2, verse 24. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and the wife were both naked and were not ashamed. And from Psalm 139, for you formed my inward parts. You weaved me in my mother's womb. I will give you thanks, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. And our 3 points I would like us to think about and think through during this meeting. The first is that being male and female is not the same as masculine and feminine. And let me tell you what I mean. Men and women were created in God's image. There is an imprint of the divine that is expressed in the distinct creation of the sexes. That is to say that both men and women have the same makeup as essence of God's imprint. They carry that within them. Our genetic coding is different. Our bodies are different. The hormones produced are different in degrees. That is to say that men and women have the same hormones, but the levels of each are significantly different, leading to some of the physical differences from those as plain as our muscle mass to those more intimate as our reproductive organs. And left to nature, there is no mechanism by which these can be altered. The only way to attempt to change a man into a woman or vice versa is by medical intervention. And that can take form of hormone therapy or surgery. Still, the transition is always incomplete, and if the treatment stops, the body automatically reverses to its original functions. The sexual imprint is so potent and tenacious that only aggressive and ongoing intervention will work to push against the natural design. And the long-term implications of doing so have yet to be understood. Now, whereas the Bible is quite clear that humankind was created by God as male and female, it does not clarify what being masculine and feminine means in black and white terms. There are some guidelines to be sure, but there's also a lot of latitude in what is left unspoken. Question of what a man or a woman is easy to answer. The question of what is masculine and feminine requires some thought. Masculine and feminine is the way one socially, externally expresses our individuality as men and women. It is a collection of traditions, tastes, talents, preferences, and a multitude of intangibles unique to each man and woman. In this area, the church would do well to take a step back and avoid getting entangled by social and cultural expectations and confuse that with a biblical model. And I want to clarify that. Perhaps the culture does not think that a man should be doing flower arrangements. They may think that is not a masculine quality. Or a woman who wants to box and participate in bodybuilding contests and see that as feminine. Some parents would be worried if the son wants to be a ballet dancer. Or the daughter wishes to become a construction worker or a mechanic. Some parents may object to a son wanting to wear pink, or a daughter who likes to cut her hair short or to shave it, as my daughter did last summer. Many Chinese parents would be embarrassed or troubled if the man stayed at home cooking and caring for the children while the wife worked outside. Or that a woman would earn a higher salary than a man. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, why so many women who have succeeded find trouble finding husbands in China. Many men simply cannot accept a woman that earns more money. And many women will only marry men who earn more than they do. And what we are left with is a collection of lonely men and women who could otherwise consider having a family. All of that because of cultural expectation of what a man or a woman should be, what is masculine and what is feminine. None of these behaviors, choices, or biases are contrary to masculinity or femininity. Men and women who display such behaviors or biases should not be misconstrued as having an identity crisis or displaying inappropriate behaviors for a man or a woman. None of these behaviors, whether we agree with them or not, are sins per se. And there's nothing unbiblical about them. And so Christians need to be careful not to label people based on external displays, but to look at the spiritual fruit of their lives, to pay less attention to their personal expressions, but more to their personal inner transformation. We really do a disfavor to people when we place them into neat cultural boxes of prejudice of our own creation, instead of seeing them as unique expressions of the image of God.